Buonasera a tutti, good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome any new listeners and everyone listening online at khbradio.com. Also be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past episodes. Vorrei dare il benvenuto a tutti i nostri ascoltatori in tutto il mondo, grazie per essere con noi anche oggi mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. In this episode, we will have a very interesting conversation with photographer, book author, and wine sommelier Robbin Gheesling on the many wine doors or windows or buchette or sportellini in Italian that have been adorning Florence for many, many centuries. Probably they made their appearance during the Medici times and have been featured recently, especially in the last couple of years, in many magazines as the contactless modality that served well over time back in the day and could have served as well during COVID times. Robbin has made her passion and her photographic goal, and maybe even obsession, who knows, about documenting as many of these beautiful wine doors with the end result of a beautiful book, Wine Doors of Florence, to help you discover them for yourself. Ma prima, pubblicità. Parli italiano? You want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at www.istitutomondoitaliano.org. Un caffè, per favore. My first cup of coffee sets the tone for my entire day, and I get my coffee at La Prima Espresso. La Prima has been brewing Pittsburgh's best coffee for nearly 35 years. Try any of their in-house roasted varieties of beans from all over the world at home, or come and enjoy an espresso or a cappuccino at any of their locations where their friendly baristas and familiar faces will make you feel at home. Because a trip to La Prima is like a little trip to Italy, only closer to home. Well, we're now finally ready to bring on Robbin Gheesling. Buonasera, Robbin.
Buonasera a tutti.
So let me ask you, what part of the world am I currently finding you at?
I am still in Florence at the moment.
Okay, so how much time do you get to spend in Italy versus the United States? And you are a New Yorker, right?
I would say I'm a New Yorker, as that's where I spent most of my adult life, but I think I wasn't born there and I didn't grow up there, but that's where okay. I say I'm from. But in terms of Florence, I think I've been here about 1.5 years now this time. And then I skipped COVID and was here in Florence for about 2 years before that. And then I've lived in Naples and I've done 3 months in Piedmont and 3 months over there and 2 years in Naples.
We will definitely talk about your experiences in Italy, because from what you just mentioned, Piedmont and Naples and everything, you got to really experience Italy 365 degree with all the different variations and the sfumature of Italianness. But can we share with our listeners and our viewers a little bit about yourself and your background?
Well, I started as a music engineer, believe it or not, and then I got really interested in wine living in New York, and I found myself really interested with Italian wine and Italian culture. As I was studying, the entire world of wine, I fell in love with the ideals of the smaller Italian winemakers and started learning the language, and then I started going back and forth between New York and Italy. And then it turned into a blog, and then it turned into a wine blog with photography. And then I scrapped the blog and just started doing the photography, and then discovered the Wine Doors of Florence. And then it turned in, and nobody had done a complete photographic study of them. And I was completely surprised by that and got that started.
So when was your first trip to Italy? The first, maybe your first visit, and then maybe your first meaningful trip to Italy?
I did do 3 weeks study abroad in graduate school, believe it or not, for a food and wine class, a nutrition class that was also here in Florence at NYU's gorgeous campus. And then I would say probably the following year, I did 3 months of work with Slow Food in Bra in Piedmont. Yeah. So
Okay.
I went super quick. Yeah.
And so when you were in Florence the first time, did you notice any of those white windows, or was it something that you discovered and researched later, as you then studied this project?
They were actually later because the study abroad course was just so jam-packed that, I didn't explore much, but then I was just happened to be on a walking tour with a friend, and the tour guide knew the one, what I call the famous one, because it's got the signage still above it where it's got the hours of operation, which still, closed at lunch, open from 9 to 3, and then we got to come back at 5. And so a lot of tour guides stopped there and they just said, this is a wine window, or a wine door. And they went about their day. And I was like, wait, what? There's got to be more than one of these. And lucky librarian down at the Oblate Library, he knew of one book that was from probably 20 years prior that just had a list of addresses in the back and some very slim information. And just with that list of addresses, I started the.
Here is your treasure hunt. The map of your treasure
Yeah.
hunt had just been handed over to you. Now, for those of you that might not know exactly what we're referring to, first of all, there is, I think, the debate: wine windows, wine doors. Do you have a preference? And in Italian also we have, sportellini, buchette, many different naming conventions. But between windows and doors, do you have a preference?
I prefer doors because, at least for the translation, the buchetta doesn't, translate beautifully into, the little holes. I'm like, no, that's not nice. But to me, it's like when I was explaining to people about the project and what they were, I was like, well, they were wooden doors, and you knocked on this small wooden door and you opened the little door. So for me, it was doors, but then the association decided windows because they thought it was, the window to the world of wine. But I was like, but they're not glass. They're not windows. They're doors. They're little wooden doors. So I prefer doors.
Okay. And so tell us a little bit about the origin of the wine doors, and who maybe use them both as the wine givers, so to speak, distributors. And so, yes, tell us a little bit about the history behind them.
Sure. So it kind of came about during the Medici, when the second round of the Medici, and they were trying to, put more money in the banks, right? So the wealthy folk were saying, hey, look, we're tired of dealing with the guilds. We don't want to have to sell our wares through these middlemen anymore. So what can we do to increase our profits so we can put more money in your bank? That they decided to say, okay, if you make agricultural produce outside the city walls of Florence, and then you can sell them directly from your house. And so that's where these little doors turned up. And then, from the fiasco bottle that was still used out in the countryside in Chianti, because they were all bottled in the countryside and brought in bottles. So then they would pass it. So that's why they're the perfect size for the Chianti fiascos. That's how they were sold.
So you just mentioned something also about the produce. So is there any likelihood that out of these windows, in addition to wine, maybe some of the families would have sold produce or other things that, or was it strictly wine?
That is likely, that once they were open for use, that there's like, okay, we sell this other agricultural product next to our grapes. Why can't we sell it out through here as well?
Yes. So then you talked about the Chianti fiasco. And my question, and maybe I have two questions. The first one is, any records on what kind of wine could that have been? The Vino della Casa of those times, was it up to our standards, or maybe just something colored?
It was definitely not up to our current standards, no. But it was, it's kind of a toss-up. It was very likely at least Sangiovese or Colorino or something of that ilk, because that's what has always been around this area. But nothing ever really got solidified as, wine labeling didn't really happen until the 60s, the 1960s. So, with Vernaccia di San Gimignano being the very first DOC. So yeah, it was definitely probably even a little sweeter, a little lower in alcohol, because it was still the pretty rustic production.
Okay.
Still cleaner than the water out of the Arno.
So you mentioned the Chianti, the fiaschetti, and something about the size of the windows is those lovely fiaschi that they're kind of, I might have one up here, but anyway, when we see those, it's like with the straw around it. Tell us a little bit about the size and everything, and whether in your research or going back, you notice that something has changed either in the bottles or the windows.
Well, amusingly, for the photography, I went and bought a modern fiasco bottle, and I must have bought one that was too big, because it didn't fit in any of the ones I was trying to take a picture of. And I was like, let's see if you guys are sharing the screen here. There's the perfect
trying to see where mine is.
Up here in that upper left of this image that I'm sharing, for those of you on the radio, not so helpful, that it's literally the perfect size, of probably about the 1 liter size. But then there are also, if you look at the differences in shapes of the collage here, that they kind of, even the shape of the doors and size of the doors changed. They were also theorizing that the smaller ones were the first ones, and then as more people made them, they got bigger. So, but also with the straw, I would like to say it was actually, I always called it the bubble wrap of the time, because the way you stack the bottles in the cart, then you could, if you put four straw bottles together, then you would and the necks were just tall enough that one would stack right in between, and they would sit between the necks of the bottles below.
The bubble wrap of the Renaissance.
Yeah, exactly.
Always very ingenious. And the bottle I do have, which is an antique bottle, is definitely smaller on what is currently available. So yes, maybe. Now, at what point, how many had you seen or located, excuse me, before you said, I want to make a project of this? At what time from curiosity turn into, may I say, obsession?
Well, a serious research effort.
Yes, indeed.
Well, I would say even probably just, once I heard, wine door, and I was already studying wine and wine culture, that, and then I found that book, early iPhone days, that, I literally I checked out the book from the library and photocopied those pages, and I literally just got on Google Maps and just started walking and walking and walking until I had every single one in the back of that book checked off. And then by the time I had photographed probably 120, the association, a cultural association for the protection of the buchette came out. We kind of were working in parallel and didn't know each other until I saw a plaque on one of them. I was like, wait, where did this come from? Which was like about 2 years after I started the project. And I contacted them, and just because of their promotion efforts, other people started reporting to them about having one in their courtyard, which you couldn't see from the street, for example. So, I think a lot of the awareness of them now has brought out probably closer to 200, which I've not been able to photograph the rest.
Yes, and also, I believe not everyone was aware to have a buchetta on their buildings wall or something, because some of them got repurposed, whether they're buzzers or maybe they got closed in, right? There wasn't, and I don't know now if there is any protection of these little bouquets. So have you noticed that some of them got repurposed?
Well, I do know that even from the book list of addresses I had from that one book, that I couldn't find 3. Like there was absolutely nowhere on the building, and it looked like maybe they had been plastered over. Now, probably, let's see, the black hole that is COVID, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, someone was having air conditioning installed on the inside of their building, and they put had it not damaged the frame of it, that 2 air conditioning vents appeared one day, and everybody threw an absolute fit. They were like, wait a minute, and made them go fix it. And then I think now they are, especially since the entirety of the Centro Storico is a UNESCO heritage site, that they are themselves protected. I don't think you could wall them up now. I don't think you can, well, you can restore them, because I know 3 places that have, restored them since the popularity of the Stanley Tucci episode. So people are serving out of them now, but but in terms of walling them up or modifying them other than restoration, I don't think is possible.
Yeah, and I'm looking through different pages and different bouquets that are at different heights. Most of them tend to be either under windows or close to the doors. And what the bouquet that led to what? A cellar, or do you know what would, is there any record of what was behind, and who was serving the wine? Do we have any information?
Well, it was definitely, the service staff, the kitchen staff likely, or even a farmer if they were working in the cellar by chance. But yes, usually like this one here was not so low, but it was also kind of, Florentines can be very private people, that these were at a height where you weren't looking face to face in like the modern customer service sense. It was just knock, knock, here's my money, hand me my wine. So they were probably more at like waist level. And then some of them, when you can see them from the inside, like if you've ever been to any of the other larger palazzi in Italy, where, if the windows were high up enough that you couldn't see in, there would be like 2 little steps for the person to see out.
Yes.
So some of these ones that look really low to the street, and we also have to think about the modern street, kind of like in Rome, the modern streets are now higher than where they were then. Plumbing and et cetera, et cetera. But the ones I have seen from the insides, several of them do have like the 2 steps up to the buchetta, so you could pass it through.
Do you obviously, in Italy, people are not watching Stanley Tucci, but have you talked to locals of different generations to see who was aware of some of them? Because, I mean, by looking at the photography, some of them may be the recipients of many graffitis. So, although that happens with a lot of other masterpieces, but others, on the other hand, got some nice graffitis. At least they're depicting something, interesting. So I was wondering if you had conversations with people, the younger people, the older people, and see what was the degree of awareness. Here, that was exactly the one I was looking at. Right here.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, perfect. I don't think I've really found anyone that recalls them in use, because they haven't really been in use since World War II. But I did find one photograph in the Alinari archive, which was from the 50s, where it was at least still in the actual door of the restaurant, but I can't find anybody that recalls using them.
More than the actual use is the awareness. Like, for instance, in Rome, in Piazza Navona, right behind it, there is the statue of the Pasquino, And, some people might know that that's where the Pasquinades, where people leave notes to kind of express their opinion about the political situation. And you can still find some notes, but if you ask random people about the talking fountains of Rome, they might look at you. So it's not always, common knowledge, even for the residents. They might see certain treasures.
I would say, again, also before the association, when I was, people were looking at me funny when I was taking pictures of the ones that were kind of, I'll say, a little less interesting. They would be like, well, these were for Madonna. These were nothing interesting. These are just where you used to put your offering. I'm like, no, they weren't.
Uh-huh.
They truly didn't understand that they were for wine, because they have a very similar shape to the niches for the Madonna.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was fascinating. But like I said, the association now, we've got a pretty good understanding of what they are.
So these are the Associazione Buchette del Vino. So what is the, you might have mentioned before, the final number that and are they just in Florence, or can we find them somewhere outside Florence?
The association has, again, with their promotion, they've found some in Pistoia. They've found some in, I know there's 2 in Fiesole, but that's still technically the province of Florence. So I don't know if that.
Okay.
Then I would have to look more into their list, but it's definitely something that originated in Florence.
Yeah.
And then maybe if someone saw it, they took the idea elsewhere, but they definitely originated.
That would be really interesting to see how the phenomenon spread out. So, again, maybe through some of the pictures and maybe your description, how would someone go about enjoying, finding them, and the order that you have put them in the book? Would that help to be, the buchette would be closer to one another? Did you go in? What is the order? Yes.
The book, this is what I call the traveler's version of my coffee table book. That was handmade and was in a limited edition of 10. So the sequence in the book is very much if you were sitting with a photography book and looking through them one by one. So in that terms, they're more in a photographic storytelling order than any kind of helpful touristic order. I would like to redo the book, and that's kind of what's in the works now, but between trying to catch research libraries open at the right time and other work I've got going on, I would like to do kind of like little maps, like here's one little walking route, because you can do, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on Via Santo Spirito alone, and have your own little walking tour done in 10 minutes. You have to be like, oh, there's one. But like getting into some of the information on who lived there and when, and my inner wine nerd wants to know what kind of grapes that family grew, that kind of thing. That can be quite intense. But so for the paperback, though, I did make sure to put the addresses underneath. So if nothing else, you could, if you find one particularly interesting in the book, you have the address and you just plug that right into your.
So one seems to be exactly the right place, because it belongs to a fiaschetteria da I Latini, the one in Via dei Palchetti, number 6, because indeed that's where you would go and get wine.
True.
But let me see, I might have to look at a closer picture. I see that I don't think it's closed up, maybe not in use, but it might be just a wooden way.
Theirs is open, but I've never seen them use it.
Okay, wonderful. So let's talk about, and maybe if you have any visuals of some of the ones that either are not to be missed because there is indeed some indication, or I don't know. I'll let you take the lead on what you would like to show us and tell us about some of these buchette.
Sure. So this one here is the one I was speaking of earlier, where it's got their the signage is right above the door there, that it tells you we are open for service from from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then again in the afternoons. But then if it's August, then we're not open. Yeah, it's so that was
things have not changed.
not at all. And this one's pretty close to Santa Maria Novella. So this one, either is very easy to find. But this photograph, just even stories of photography, was quite difficult because up until recently, the street was always completely full of motorino parking. Like I had to be, this is at 7 a.m. to trying to get, nobody's come into town yet. Yeah. But this one's a really interesting one. And this one here that's at the other side of the Duomo. You will completely miss this because it's in a restaurant right behind the seating for the restaurant is right in front of it, obviously. And then if you peek your head in, they've gotten so used to people peeking their head in. Go for it. It's the door to the kitchen now. But this one on the back here in like say it's Piazza Duomo has all of its original iron latches behind it.
Wow.
But I think it's so rusty that I don't think nobody's ever tried, to my knowledge, to try to open it. But just to see all of that ironwork there is completely fascinating. Let's see. Then the one.
Go ahead. While you choosing the next one, I'm looking at the one in Via Guelfa that is now a posta Grandini. So it became a mailbox. Right, and
it did.
Perfect.
Perfect little place, yeah. Now Vivoli's got an interesting story. The gelateria, when I was doing this too, I'd asked them. They were super slow. They weren't serving anyone that day, and I asked the lovely woman behind the cashier. I was like, she's like, you know what these were for, right? She's like, oh yes, of course. She's like, but we didn't. She just started volunteering information. I'm like, thank you so much. She's like, we didn't know we had one until the flood of '66. Like, because it was completely sealed over. And when the flood, which was, see, I think not in this photograph, but somewhere on that street, there's the marker of where the floodwaters reached in '66. She said, yeah, and our walls almost disintegrated. And when we were cleaning that up to repair them, we found this little niche, and so we restored it. So they, like I say, talking about, we don't know how many we've lost as well before people got fascinated with them. Because if this was, I don't know how long Vivoli's been around, but if they didn't find it again until '66.
Yeah, and I'm looking exactly at the same and I see that there is also there's a bigger plaque, but that I believe maybe it's for someone. And then there is another plaque in the middle, and that metal rod. I wonder if any of it was an indication of the flood. Okay, tell us somewhere. Take us somewhere else.
So I don't have like the other fascinating thing about this project, though, is even if you use my addresses to find them, they're going to be different, because this is Osteria della Belle Donne, which is down the street from the other one, and at the time I was taking these pictures, it was completely sealed up on the other side. So especially during COVID, when people couldn't, come into your restaurant, he had it hollowed out and repainted got the green off the door, repaired the door. As you can see, it's split.
So
now he's got. So now he's got two big banners on both sides, like, look, I've got a wine door. But they can serve out of it too. But it's kind of funny though, because as I was saying, this one's actually quite high up in compared to the cellar that is and was the basement and is now the restaurant. Is like you step down into this restaurant. So this, even though it's hip level at the street, you have to go up a couple of stairs to get to it, to sort of out of it. So he doesn't, you can't just knock on it and he'll come running. You have to kind of stick your nose in and say, hey, I'd like to use the wine door. And then he'll come with the glass. But it's also just fascinating watching these things change, even since I've done this round of photography.
So Let's see. So it's as you said before, and you know, the maybe a possible reiteration of the book would be with more information about because now you have kind of the photography, and just add the information that you're sharing with us. So is that, and then Nisha, you're also working on something else, and I don't know if you can tell us about what you're working on, but go ahead. Yeah, that was another one I was looking at in the book. And when I think I connected you over the summer, and I was all over, I was really all over Italy this summer. And that was something I had to postpone it, to really go around Florence with your book and trying to find a few of them. And just time as usual was never enough. So now I have my next adventure plan out to see Florence from a different perspective.
Oh, amazing. Great. Well, my next project is actually a documentary, a still photographic documentary of Casa del Vino wine bar over next to Mercato Centrale. I'm not sure if you're familiar. It's a second family, third generation currently in it. Fourth generation just started working there. She just graduated university. And it's just the care he takes with his wine selection and the products that he sells for being such a tiny place is, you know, it's something that really needs to be documented and preserved as these places start to disappear as the bigger Florence gets. So I want to make sure that place is well documented.
And so obviously being a wine sommelier as well, if I can, you know, you can, if there is, do you want to tell us a little bit about the buchetta that we are actually looking at on the screen right now?
Well, just for me, this is one of the most fascinating one because of the level of detail they went for the frame. It's just, it's obviously, to me, one of the later ones, because it looks like they even went ahead and cut out from the frame of the windowsill to put this in. And then it's got the hint of the arch at the top, but then to have gone ahead and gone into like full brick and to put wine sails on top of it, to me, is always just completely fascinating. And then photographically speaking, the textures on the walls was quite a interesting addition. It also turned into a study of drain pipes, paint, and wine doors.
So if I can take advantage of your knowledge of Florence, for those people going there either for the first time or maybe coming back, are there some must-go places that you would recommend to enjoy a nice glass of vino, whether it's for an aperitivo, an apericena, or just, you know, doing some wine tasting?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so like I said, Casa del Vino next to the Mercato Centrale over there in San Lorenzo is the one I'm doing the book on now, not to miss. On the other side of the river, if you're not looking for it, you will miss it. It's in every guidebook. So if you're doing your research, you will find the Volpe Luva, great little place. Also, that's more of an apericena. They close at 9 p.m. Casa del Vino is only open for lunch, and then Friday and Saturday they're open late. Let's see, but like in terms of like a great wine list for a proper dinner, you're still probably looking at Il Santo Bevatore, you know, it's always got a great list. Then the wine bar equivalent, there are little next door wine bars, Il Santino, but yeah, little snacks, little Scooby snack. Let's see, then put me on the spot here. I usually have my list already in the back of my head here.
No, that's well. If we want to pair up some food, any type of food that you would recommend, you know, some specialties of the Florentine cuisine, what would come to your mind?
Well, I just had a great big bowl of ribollita at lunch today. It was perfect. It's even though we have this blazing hot summer and now we're having this nice mild autumn, and I'm enjoying, but I still wanted my soup.
Can you explain what obviously ribollita means? But again, it might be new to some of our listeners. So what is it? What does it look like? How is it served?
It's a highly unattractive looking bowl of soup. It, ribollita for the language learners, and it's cooked twice, re-boiled. So it's the Tuscan kale and cannellini beans, and it's mostly bread. So it's kind of like, as my friend said today at lunch, she's like, "Oh, this is like the winter papa al pomodoro." So you've got your summer bread and tomato soup, and you've got your winter kale and bean bread soup. But then you add your celery, carrot, onion. I say the kale, the beans, the bread, and I don't know. There's salt, pepper, garlic. I mean, it's something that it's another one of those Tuscan things that sounds so simple. And I mean, yeah, literally, you could just throw all this stuff in a pot.
So delicious. Yes, Italian comfort food.
Exactly. It is very weighty if you got that stale bread in there, but and it's usually served in a little, I call it a country-ish kind of brown bowl, because especially if you have it
terracotta type of.
Yeah. So Trattoria Casalinga is where I was today for lunch, which is also highly recommended.
Yes, Trattoria Casalinga gives an idea of authenticity right there. So before, you had mentioned working on a slow food project. Actually, in our previous episodes, we had an interview with the global community manager of the Slow Food Youth Network, which is obviously a spin-off of Slow Food. Can you share a little bit about what you did with them, and how was your experience in Bra?
Oh, well, this was so long ago, and so even in the beginning, early stages of slow food even existing. All I really did for them was just media projects. It was just getting some photography done, and just some general media work. There was no specific real project involved with that. It was quite some time ago.
How did you like the area? I was just in Torino this summer twice, so I didn't get to explore much of it. Obviously, Torino is beautiful, and it was Italy's first capital, and so a lot of very important buildings, lots of museums, beautiful, let's call it boulevard, belle strade. So how was your experience in Piedmont?
I've actually been to Torino many times since. Bra, at the time I was there, was still quite small. Like I say, slow food hadn't quite been the magnet of people that it is now. So it still felt, I'm sure it still is very small, but I quite enjoyed it, and it was definitely a flip from listening to my Brooklyn Italian friends speak to suddenly Piedmontese dialect. Was definitely a fascinating experience. But as you're saying, having lived in Naples and having just got back from Torino and Florence, and it was just the different flavors. Just like if you go from New York to Florida, you're gonna have a whole different set of experiences. So quite the same here too.
Yeah, I mean, and Naples is also a beautiful city. It was the capital of culture back in the day, and it is definitely a city that someone must visit. And because again, there is Naples, and everyone in all the areas around. I mean, La Reggia di Caserta. If you go to Caserta, it's even bigger than Versailles, and there is so much richness, and and not to be missed. Napoli is the most vibrant, I think, city in Italy. There's nothing like Naples, in my opinion. There is that energy that comes from the streets and the motorini. Obviously there are motorini everywhere, but they're like zigzagging through these narrow streets, and just the cordiality of the Neapolitans, the dialects, and sometimes even when they're swearing, they're so creative in their swearing. There's like almost poetry. You're like, oh, okay, they just called me blah blah blah, but it was so
It was done in such a great way. I'm so impressed. Yay, thank you so much.
And then it's every vowel has a different meaning based on the intonation that you whether it's a question or a comment, and then for anyone that loves in addition to pizza, we know about pizza, but in the surrounding areas, the mozzarella di bufala, and really can go mozzarella di bufalo hopping, because it's one cheese producer after another. And so I definitely always recommend my students to go and experience Naples. And then during the holidays you get also, well, you can get San Gregorio, but all the pieces for the presepe to collect. Let me see.
That's what ruined me in Naples, was literally being able to wake up in the morning and go to my caseificio, go to my cheese shop, and to be handed mozzarella directly out of the pot. It's like
fresh and hot.
It's like it's like every time I've had mozzarella since, I'm like, it's just not the same. It's not the same.
So you said now you have been in Florence for about a year and a half for the project is here. Eventually your return to US, not dictated, but kind of you're planning once you're done with all your research, or you're planning to kind of move to be a long-term resident of Italy?
Well, we'll see how it goes. I've got the immigration appointments in the next few months, so we'll see.
In bocca al lupo.
Right.
Any other places that you've been to Italy that you would like to share your experience, or maybe some of the places that you would like to go and visit that you haven't got to?
Well, yeah, I've still got I don't say the problem, but the bucket list of I haven't been to enough of all of Europe, even though with all the cheap flights I haven't seemed to escape. But now I'm kind of stuck in this idea of I've been to 15 regions of Italy. I need to just finish them all. Just go to Molise for a day, and so you could tick the box. I don't know why. What other reason there is to go to Molise? But
Molise is a very nice region. It's offers more than what people give it credit to. I actually took a Vespa. My brother has a custom-made Vespa sidecar, and so every summer we have a region that we travel extensively to. And Molise, he was already familiar with it, and I was actually very surprised because people say Molise, and Molise is. It has a lot to offer. The one I'm missing is Val d'Aosta. That's my 20th that I'm missing.
Yeah, I've not been quite there yet. I've been so close. Like I was in a part of the Alps in Piedmont where I could see the Val d'Aosta. Not quite there yet. But I talking about something I'm pretty sure the Germans have discovered. They always get there first. But Friuli for Americans is not visited enough. I mean, I love Friuli. If someone said, okay, we're sorry, you have to move to Udine or to Cormons, I'd be like, oh, shucks, okay. I'll be right there.
Yes, it's becoming, Italy, the families from Friuli, there might be Lydia Bastianic, although she's Istria, and so that's also where we have also the prosciutto San Daniele, because everyone thinks about prosciutto Parma, but and many other industries there, also the manufacturing of cruise ships, and is a very popular industry there, that back in the day people from the south will go and work in these big cantieri for an extended period of time. So you said that there are only 5. Is by chance Sardinia within one of those that you're missing, or one of those that you have visited?
Yes. No, Sardinia is still on the list.
Okay, so that's where I was this summer, and I highly recommend the outer, obviously the seaside, the coastline is to die for, but for someone like yourself, the Entroterra, the inland, is where you're going to find the true treasures of Sardinia, starting with the people, obviously, but then the many different traditions and the costumes and the gold traditions. And so that's my recommendation. Sardinia is very popular among the Italians, but typically more as a, the vacation spot because of the sea being so pristine and the seaside. Well, we are pretty much coming close to our conversation, and I was wondering if you don't mind sharing your contact details or where people can get the book or some. I see that you also offer workshops, right?
I do photographic workshops, yeah, and I would say most of the time it's device independent. If all you have is an iPhone, you can happily work you through how to take better pictures on your iPhone. But it's also for, I will say, anywhere from beginner to intermediate photographers that want to come to Florence and see Florence while learning some photographic work is what I do. And a couple of times it has turned into show me all the wine doors. That's happened twice. Okay, here you go. Now let's
show me how to take better pictures of the wine.
It's like, that's no problem. And then, but then I do this everywhere from a 3-hour to a 2-day workshop for photography here in Florence. I could also do portrait sessions. I call it, the paparazzi session, where you're just on vacation and I follow you around and send you the pictures. Then for the book, in the United States, this is the best way to get, or I'll say North America is the best way to get it here. I can ship worldwide, so that's no problem. And then I've got the lovely tote bag.
You know that tote is coming to Pittsburgh very soon.
Oh, it's actually really great. And then I had somebody request a jigsaw puzzle, which I thought was, well, that's a good idea.
That is absolutely a great idea. Yes. Perfect also for the holidays when families get together, and so I think that will be a great addition to the school because we always have activities. Okay, keep on shopping. Go ahead.
Perfect. Well, I also do any image of any particular single wine door you'd like. I don't have them all up here as individual items to order, but you can just contact me and I can do you any kind of size, material, framed, unframed, high-end paper, posters, as then I did several custom orders already. You can get a gift card for anyone who might like any photography of Florence.
And let people then pick their own preferred gift. Now, just going back to the photography for a second, the digital versus, still, do you get to print your own pictures anymore, yourself? Have you ever done that, or you were already directly into the digital world?
Well, it's been both. I have had 2 or 3 exhibitions of the work. And like I say, I've had other people, let's see, I wonder where I put that. Someone ordered nope, it's not there. A 4-foot by 3-foot metal print of the grid. And I was like, wow, it's bigger in your house than it is in mine. But yeah, I'm about to order actually a fairly large version of, actually I'm about to get a full version of that.
Yes.
If anybody wants to emulate this shot, this is from the tower of the Palazzo Vecchio. So, but it was also in the stairs. So it was like having people come behind me the whole time. Like, I'm trying to take a picture.
So, well, Robbin, I can just tell you that, personally, I've enjoyed tremendously, chatting with you, learning all about your project. And again, those projects, they start with curiosity, but to me, they're invaluable because they're going to leave a permanent record of a history that is no longer there, that not many people might be familiar with. And so having, had the persistence and the perseverance to go after this project, your vision is, I thank you on behalf of millions of other individuals who will definitely, through your publication, get to experience Florence. And also this will be great even when traveling with children, because sometimes to keep them, moving around a city in Italy where there are like thousands of churches everywhere, and a lot of paintings that maybe a younger audience might not be have so much interest in. At least these can also turn into something that makes it a family way of discovering Florence. So without any further ado, because I know it's getting late for you, past your dinner time, unfortunately our time is up, and it's time to say arrivederci and alla prossima. And we want to thank you for tuning in to the program. If you have any questions or comments, or if you have any travel topics you would like us to address, please contact us at theitalianradiohour@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And remember, if you or any of your family and friends have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, please visit our website at www.istitutomonditaliano.org and click on the Italian Radio Hour tab. We would like to thank our guest, Robbin Gheesling, our sponsors, Istituto Mondo Italiano, La Prima Espresso, e Alla Boara for the music. If you're not living in the Pittsburgh area or might be out of town, remember, you can catch us streaming live at khbradio.com every Thursday at 5 o'clock. And be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at Italian Radio Hour. Until next time, alla prossima. Ciao, ciao.